Okay, I'll try and keep us close to being on time. We're a little bit behind. I want to tell you a little bit about XSEDE. I didn't mention during the introductions this morning, I also have this other little job running this project in the U.S., which is a sizable endeavor. I'm trying to tell you a little bit about this. You probably have figured out a fair bit, particularly since you've encountered the XSEDE user portal in order to get access to your accounts. So just a little bit of why we're doing what we're doing. What we're doing is quite similar to the other organizations that you've already heard from. But in proposing this project, we sort of had to back up and say, well, why do you do this anyway? And why do you do this with all these different architectures? And it turns out they're needed for a lot of different scientific endeavors. They don't just need one type of computing. They often need multiple types of computing. And a big thing that was a thematic through the other presentations also is an incredible amount of training is needed. And of course, XSEDE provides a lot of that. Stated vision and mission statements for XSEDE. These have been very helpful in helping us keep focused on what we're doing and how we do it. And so this has maybe a bit of a, well, it'll have a strong orientation towards the U.S., particularly in our mission statement, because we're funded by the National Science Foundation. And so to a large degree, we follow the NSF vision and try and fill in part of their overall vision. But we do have a little bit of a twist in that while we are solely funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation, we are expected to support federally funded research from any federal agency in the U.S. And their collaborators internationally. About 20% of those who have accounts on XSEDE allocated systems are from outside the U.S. However, the PI on the allocation request has to be a U.S.-based researcher. This is sort of a little bit about the project itself. We're in a second 5-year award for XSEDE right now. It's $110 million over 5 years, so this is not a small project. And this does not include any hardware at all. This is funding the people that pull it together. A number of the folks that are presenting here that are from the U.S., I think everybody from the U.S. Presenting is associated with XSEDE and funded on it. So we have partners at 19 institutions across the U.S. This makes for challenging distributed work. So as Scott mentioned earlier, if you're interested in what it means to work in a distributed organization or work remotely, most of the XSEDE folks are local to their parent institution, but they're collaborating with folks on XSEDE at many different institutions across the U.S. So it's a blended sort of job that they have, both a local responsibilities and responsibilities to this distributed organization. Ultimately, it's all about the science. So this is a set of images that are associated with various science success stories over the past year. And unfortunately, in a lot of the presentations I give, we aren't talking about this. We're talking about how do we actually run this project, which is fascinating in and of itself, but isn't directly about the science either. So here's our partners. I suspect you will recognize many of these universities and partners that are playing here. You heard there are folks here from PSC and TAC, and myself and Jay from NCSA. So we'll show up here. But we have, and those 4 institutions are the primary institutions and consume most of the funding. But we recognize that amongst those 4 institutions, we don't have everything is necessary to support the broad community that we support, because we have to essentially be able to or be ready to support any field of science. And that is a bit of a challenge in and of itself. As I said, we support lots of research and from many different agencies. So I kind of keep track of this because I like to let my funding agency know that only 30% of the money they give to this project actually supports the research they fund. The rest of it is research funded by other agencies around the U.S. or in the U.S. And so this creates some interesting challenges in how we run the project and try to support the broad community that we're engaged in. So here's some of the things that we provide. No surprise, we're quite similar to the other organizations again. Being last in the list, I don't get to tell you anything cool and interesting because we all are doing quite similar things, although we have different contexts in which we work, which create different challenges for us to accomplish those goals. So we have a variety of different systems I don't think there was much emphasis by the others, and maybe this is a differentiator. We also support high throughput computing rather strongly. There's probably a fair bit of that going on the cloud system in Compute Canada. But we explicitly support allocate time on the open science grid in the U.S. And of course, we have a collection of various types of resources. I have a list of them here, but and then I wanted to give you a sense. I don't think we saw much of this kind of data from the other projects, the other organizations. You know, these are the sorts of some of the impacts that we're having on the community in the U.S. So you'll see this reference to RY on here. Don't worry about what that means. Just consider that a year. So XSEDE recently went through its annual review about a month ago. Almost 3 years into this 5-year award, but we've actually been operating for almost 8 years now. 9,200 researchers had allocation access and used it, not just had an account. Lots of publications that have been we've vetted to make sure that they are actual publications. A lot of it is self-reported information, and so sometimes we'll get a self-report from researchers who say they gave a brown bag talk. That doesn't really count as a publication, but we do get that kind of stuff. We cleaned up that in our data. So over the history of XSEDE thus far, we've had over 300,000 citations of these publications, which I think is a number that continues to be difficult for me to get my head around. You have run across the XSEDE user portal. And you will have access to XSEDE allocated systems, particularly bridges for your exercises. But we have a lot of folks who come to the XSEDE user portal who do not end up having allocations or access to an allocation. And the vast majority of those folks are accessing training materials, either registering for the live streamed versions or going through the online training that we have available. This is free to anyone around the planet, so take this back with you. If you're looking for training on a particular topic, as some of the others in our little cabal here that put together the summer school, we have a lot of this training that's available. You've already got your user portal account. You can go and look at what's there and take particularly the online stuff at any point in time. Share that with your colleagues who are interested in learning more about these things too. There's other numbers on here. I won't go through them all, but just sort of shows the scale of the sort of project that we're doing here. Again, the user portal is really the place to go to do all things XSEDE when you're trying to access training, conduct your science through use of allocations and whatnot. So there's lots of capabilities that have been built into this over time. So there's many things that you can do. One of the key things is that it provides a single sign-on to all of the XSEDE allocated resources, which a lot of folks find very convenient. So on this slide and the next couple, I've just given you the sort of list of current resources that are out there, so you can get a sense of what's available and the different types of platforms that are there. These are all explained in much more detail on the URL given on the page. So those are our compute platforms. We have data platforms on the left side of this, for storage primarily. And then one of the reasons a lot of folks come to XSEDE and get access to allocations is actually to get access to software. Software licensing can be very challenging and expensive, particularly folks at smaller institutions. And we have a very extensive library of software titles that are available, lots of tools, and of course compilers and libraries that are available on each of the systems. All of this, again, this information is available on these links, and I'll get these slides uploaded to the Moodle so you can follow those as necessary. One of the things that we do that is perhaps a little different is we have this this area of the project which consumes nearly somewhere north of 30% of our budget annually, ECSS, the Extended Collaborative Support Service. So this is providing direct support to research teams, not through just email contacts, but engaging in projects in which something like 25% of a staff member's time over the course of a year is dedicated to working with that team to help them with their applications in a variety of ways that you see here. But often it's scaling, porting optimization, those sorts of things. But it's many other things too. Sometimes they're implementing new algorithms. Sometimes they're developing new algorithms. There's lots of things that go on here. And in fact, many of our ECSS staff end up being co-authors on papers with those research teams because of the recognized contributions that they're making beyond just figuring out how to use the compute systems. Most of these ECSS staff are PhDs in one field or another, and so they can actually make scientific contributions in the context of the work that they're doing with them. So it's a very interesting element of the program. It is an allocated resource, so we allocate staff time, and you can request it at the same time that you request an allocation. You can also request it subsequently to getting an allocation through what we call a supplemental request. And so in that request, you outline what you want to accomplish, how long you think it's going to take, and then once that comes through the peer review process, the ECSS staff will contact the team and work out a detailed project plan to work with them. So this is a really important element of the program and really helping folks to get the most out of these resources to use them most efficiently and effectively. So I'm going to hold there. Lots more information on the website and on the portal, and I hope that you have a good time this week, and these resources that we're going to make available for supporting the workshop are useful and helpful to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, John.